I'm gonna light a match and watch it burn. What a crazy episode. Maybe not the best season finale, but it was definitely a strong end to the season nonetheless. If you haven't seen the season 4 finale of From, episode 10, If a Tree Falls in a Forest, then go ahead and skedoodle because there's gonna be some spoilers and I wanna talk about them. So we pick up right where we left off with in episode 9, where Tabitha starts to panic because the monsters are right outside their tarp door. Jade's able to reassure her and getting her to help him put the bones into the bags. Up on the top ground, Boyd's pacing back and forth while everyone else is concerned about how long it's taking. As Jade and Tabitha are gathering the bones and putting them into the bag, Jade tells Tabitha that when the ladder comes down, she needs to take both of the bags and get up as quickly as she can, telling her that he lied about the bones providing protection, saying that if Boyd knew that this plan was dangerous at all, he was going to squash it, not letting it happen. And so he lied about the bones. But he goes and he tells Tabitha that he's glad that it was her that he got to spend all those lifetimes with. I bet you that the Jade and Tabitha shippers are absolutely salivating after this finale. We go to up top where we end up hearing the signal come through on their radio and they start to pull down the tree. As soon as any kind of light starts peeking through the roots, the monsters are able to come through the tarp door, knocking down not only the tarp, but also the talisman that was on the tarp. But Boyd and his team are able to fully pull the bottle tree up by the roots, revealing a little hole into the offering room. And as soon as they're able to get that hole open, the cowboy monster is just about to step into the light, but we see that they're not the biggest fan of the light. We don't know if it does any kind of damage to them, but we know they don't like it. Boyd and his team throw down the rope ladder that they had spent all that time making, and when Tabitha was about 3/4 of the way up, the section of the ladder that Sophia ended up cutting the night before ended up snapping, causing Tabitha to fall back down to the ground. As Boyd is trying to call back out to Tabitha and Jade, the sky suddenly turns pitch black, going from day to night in a matter of seconds. The monsters start to approach Jade and Tabitha down in the offering room, and just when all hope looks lost, Tabitha is able to find a small opening that leads to a little tunnel that then ends up leading to a little jail cell that the monsters kept the kids in. At this same time, massive earthquakes are hitting, which are probably one of the only reasons that Jade and Tabitha actually survived the monsters, because the earthquakes kept knocking down rocks onto the monsters. But while the earthquakes are going on, we actually flash over to the sheriff's station where we see Victor panicking in the little room that they have him locked in. Kenny ends up unlocking the door where him and Victor end up standing in the doorway to try to protect themselves from the earthquake. And Victor is screaming at Kenny, "I told you so." They should have listened to him. Should have listened. Boyd keeps calling down into the hole, trying to hear some kind of sign that both Jade and Tabitha are alive, but with the night suddenly coming upon them, the monsters are able to come out, and so they start approaching the group that was pulling down the tree. Chrissy's able to snap Boyd out of it, saying that if they don't get out of there right now, everyone is gonna die. To which the entire group starts scrambling to get into their cars, everyone but Patty, who is freaking out because she's just been having a rough couple of days. So Boyd's able to grab her and help her into the van, and they skedoodle off. As they're driving away, one of the monsters full-on sprints up to the van and starts banging on the windows as they drive by. But while Boyd's trying to handle the chaos, Patty takes that opportunity to take Boyd's weapon and she tries to shoot herself. But thankfully, Boyd's able to stop her and he yells at her, "What the heck is she doing?" Fatima and Marielle are cleaning up the clinic after the major earthquakes hit, and Fatima feels like they should be doing something more. So she actually demands that they go out and help, and she starts to try to leave the clinic. But Marielle stops her, saying that she shouldn't leave in her condition. But as Fatima starts to argue back, she starts to see through Smiley's perspective, seeing that Smiley is approaching the clinic. Marielle's like, "Don't worry, we have the talisman," and then looks and the talisman is not there. It actually got knocked down during the earthquake, and so Marielle's trying to grab it while Fatima's freaking out watching Smiley approach them. And just as Marielle grabs it, Smiley comes into the clinic. They end up running back to go into Christy and Marielle's room, and Fatima tries to find something to hang the talisman with, and Marielle tries to hang it, but as soon as she does, Smiley comes into the room. Marielle tries to defend Fatima by taking a knife and taking a swipe at Smiley, but he easily dodges it and takes a good old chunk out of her stomach. And then both Smiley and Fatima start screeching at each other, and there's just this moment of confusion for Marielle as she's bleeding out of her stomach, and suddenly these two things are screaming at each other. Smiley ends up coming out of his monster form and just goes, "Interesting," and walks out of the clinic. Fatima goes to try to help Marielle, and Marielle kind of freaks out, saying, "Don't touch me," but Fatima says that she needs help, and Marielle just wants Christy. who Christy and Ellis are actually arriving to the clinic in the truck that they had out at the bottle tree when they see Smiley leaving the clinic, and they instantly know that something is wrong. So they speed the rest of the way to the clinic, and Christy hops out of the truck, runs inside, and sees the state that Marielle is in. As she goes to try to comfort Marielle, Marielle just asks for one last kiss goodbye. And Christy gives her that kiss, and by the end of it, Marielle is no longer breathing. Sophia sits across from Elgin as she asks him if he's going to accept the bargain she's offering, saying that this could be his chance to go home. Elgin's trying to look around, but Sophia wants pure eye contact. And when Elgin's being a little on edge about giving an answer, she tells him that this sudden darkness is because things are coming to an end, and things always get messy at the end. But as she's saying this, Elgin tries to stand up to leave, but he's stopped by Clara, who gets in his way. And Sophia turns around and asks him, "Elgin, where are you gonna go?" As she walks towards him, and he continuously walks backward into the little kitchen area. Sophia holds out both her hands and she goes, "Give me your hands, Elgin," which he does. And she asks one last time, "Elgin, do you accept my bargain?" To which he responds with a prayer. Not quite the response I would have had, but I'm glad that he denied her nonetheless. But it didn't come without consequence, because immediately after, she squeezes his hands and he seizes up in pain, and his eyes start becoming bloodshot as blood starts tearing down his face and pooling out of his mouth before he fully collapses onto the ground, also no longer alive. Sophia tells Clara to deal with the body as she takes the talisman down from the inside of the diner. Clara asks Sophia what she's planning on doing, to which Sophia responds that she's gonna light the match and watch it all burn. And then she walks out of the diner, telling Clara she'll see her later. Henry's gazing outside, real confused looking, as Donna stops by to check in on him. She tells him that the darkness is new, and he goes to pick some stuff up off of the ground and picks up a tin and finds 2 bullets in it. And he asks Donna, "Why does Victor have 2 bullets?" To which she just casually goes, "Oh, he used to carry around a gun in his lunchbox, but Boyd took it away, don't worry." But Henry recalls the vision he had with Vision Victor, where Vision Victor told him that once he accepts that this is all just a dream, the dream will provide everything that he needs. So finding these 2 bullets was his evidence of the dream providing what he needed. How Donna doesn't see the similarities between Henry saying that this isn't real and Abby saying that it isn't real is beyond me, and I'll probably talk more on that later. Boyd shows up to the clinic and he can immediately tell us something is wrong just by Randall's demeanor. He goes inside just as Fatima is telling Ellis only half of the truth, leaving out the part that she was screeching at Smiley. Boyd makes sure that her and Ellis are okay before going in to comfort Christy. And the wails and the sobs that Christy lets out were so incredibly heartbreaking. We see the hole that Boyd ends up making from ripping up the bottle tree, and we see red light kind of surging in the bottom of it before it shoots up into the sky and spreads out through the clouds, spreading a really eerie and menacing red lightning with loud booming claps of thunder. As this lightning and thunder are going on, the van ends up arriving back to Colony House after having dropped Boyd off in town, and once Ethan registers that Tabitha is absent, he freaks out and runs away. Donna and Julie go after him to try to reassure him, and as they do, there's a ghost that throws a tantrum, starts throwing dishes and cups and everything every which way, and starts slamming cupboards, which causes them to freak out again and leave the kitchen, to where Julie ends up catching up with Ethan, and he freaks out and he cries that everyone is gonna end up dying and that he's gonna be all alone, and he doesn't want to be all alone. And Julie reassures him to the best of her abilities that he is not going to be alone. She doesn't know how she can promise that, but she just promises it. Sophia makes her rounds to all the buildings, taking the talismans from each one. And while Sophia's stealing talismans, we see Henry sneak into the sheriff's station, make sure that no one's in there, and try to search for a weapon that the bullets can fit. He ends up finding something in one of the desks just as Kenny comes into the sheriff's station, and Henry quickly leaves. Boyd ends up coming in right after Henry leaves to try to change his shirt, but he can't really get far into it before Kenny starts pushing him about what the plan is. And then before Boyd can even really give an answer, Acosta and Sarah also come in because Acosta also wants the same answers. Boyd gets frustrated and tells them to tell him how to move forward. He points out that they made the sun go down and they tore a hole in the sky with lightning. And then it says he's already lost 3 people and he's not gonna lose more. The 3 people he's talking about is Jade, Tabitha, and Marielle. He doesn't know about Elgin yet. No one does. As they argue about what they're gonna do next, Sarah starts to hear the static on the radio that Jade made. She gets everyone's attention, to which they start focusing on that, seeing this as their proof that Jade and Tabitha are still alive. Jade and Tabitha are using the last little bit of their battery to try to signal to Boyd or whoever has the radio. But as the battery dies, Tabitha suggests chest trying to dig at the wooden bars that are blocking their exit. Ellis helps Randall carry Marielle's body out to the wagon, and Christy and Randall go out to the church to try to prepare Marielle's body for a funeral. Boyd, Ellis, and Fatima go back into the clinic, and Boyd tells them that he's gonna go into the tunnels to try to find Jade and Tabitha. Ellis and Fatima both demand that they go, and Boyd loses that argument, and so they all head out to go to the tunnel entrance. Sophia goes into the sheriff's station. She calls out to see if anyone's in the sheriff's station, and once she finds out that there's no one in there, she steals that talisman as well. And at this point, I'm just becoming really frustrated that no one is catching her yet. I don't count Elgin, because if he had made that choice, he wouldn't have gotten caught. Henry loads his weapon as there's a knock on the door, and Henry hides his weapon, and Victor walks in. Victor asks Henry if he did anything wrong because everything was fine, but all of a sudden, Henry's having a very difficult time. And Henry tells him that Victor didn't do anything wrong. The problem is that none of it is even real to begin with. And then he points the weapon at Victor. Henry tells him that he's seen the truth and that he's seen the real Victor who has a son and who's happier. And Victor tells Henry that something there is lying to him. But Henry only responds with he's been lying to himself. And just as Henry's about to pull the trigger, Ethan walks into the room calling out Victor's name. And Henry turns over and points at Ethan. And I swear they were gonna do it. But not before Victor jumps in front and knocks the weapon out of Henry's hand and starts throttling Henry, yelling and screaming at him. Sophia goes into the bar and steals the talisman from there, and as she leaves, she sees Clara walking up to her. Clara hands over her bag that I assume is also full of talismans from all over town. Boyd, Ellis, and Fatima end up arriving at the tunnel's entrance, and Fatima tells them that she doesn't really understand her abilities, she just knows that she can sense when the monsters are near. Jade and Tabitha start using the bones to try to dig at the wooden bars instead because digging with their hands is proving to go too slow. Boyd, Ellis, and Fatima make their way deeper into the tunnels, where we see that Fatima is not only able to sense where the monsters are, she can also understand what their screeches mean. Jade has a moment where he's having a hard time believing that the bones used to be children, where Tabitha picks up a skull and has this moment of connection and realizes that this skull was their daughter. Boyd, Ellis, and Fatima end up finding Jade and Tabitha as Jade starts to get frustrated and tries to kick the wooden bars clear of their way. Fatima stands watch as Boyd and Ellis try to help them out, and Boyd results to shooting the bars out. Jade and Tabitha are able to get out of their little cell just as monsters start to approach the little area that they're in. Fatima turns around and tells them to go, she'll hold them off, and Ellis has this moment of confusion, not really understanding, and Fatima looks at him and just tells him to remember who she was as she turns around and straight up starts transforming into one of the monsters. Not exactly sure how I feel on that, but I'll talk more on that in a future video. Boyd has to drag Ellis out of the room as they make their getaway, and Fatima holds off the monsters. Sophia walks through the forest as we see the boy in white approach her and walk by her side. Sophia makes a little jab noting about how the boy in white has grown. The boy in white tells her that she's gonna lose this time because they have the children's bones, but Sophia tells them that they don't have the bottle tree anymore. But the boy in white is still feeling confident and optimistic, saying that she's gonna lose, to which Sophia tells him that she's always admired his optimism as she pours the talismans into a faraway tree. While there were certainly some cheesy and corny moments throughout this finale, I'm looking at you, Patty, and I'm looking at you, Fatima. The finale overall was good. And with one season left, just 10 episodes, the stakes are incredibly high. And I'm not sure if I'm gonna be able to deal with this weight they're gonna put us through. What are your thoughts on that finale that we just got? And how do you think things are gonna go in season 5? Drop your thoughts in the comments below and let me know. If you're part of the Frumly and you like to see Frumly theories or character breakdowns, be sure to like, follow, and subscribe to get videos just like this one.